Before we start off this review, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Chronic Gaming Disorder. He was able to provide me the gameplay you see in this video, and I'll be leaving a link to the description to his channel in the video. Let's get started. The Game Boy Advance game Minish Cap is what I believe is a hidden gem in the Legend of Zelda franchise. The game came out in November 2004, made by a partnership with Capcom and Nintendo. This was the third game made both by Capcom and Nintendo. The first two were Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. The director was Hidemaru Fujibashi, and the producer was Keiji Unifune and Koji Kondo and Mitsuhiko Takano working on the sound for the game. The game takes place before Ocarina of Time in the Force era, but after the Sky era and Skyward Sword. The story is another basic one in which Princess Zelda is in trouble, this time caused by not caused by Ganondorf, but Vati, and Link has to restore the power of the Picori sword to conquer Vati. Vati was an apprentice to Elzlo who transformed him into a cap and would break the Picori sword and take over the kingdom of Hyrule. Link travels to the Minish Woods because they forged the Picori sword and they are the only ones who can fix it. Link goes to the Minish Woods and stumbles upon Elzlo trapped by monsters. Link saves him and they go to the Minish. The Minish need Link to go gather 4 elements in order to restore the Picori sword to its truest form. Link goes to different areas all across Hyrule and uses the power to shrink along with other items to gather all the elements. Once he has gathered all the elements, he takes the Picori sword to be finally fixed, and it then becomes the White Sword, which transforms Link into 4 different versions of himself. Link goes to the Hyrule Castle to find it in ruins and overrun by monsters. After traveling through most of the dungeon, Link finds out Vati is about to drain all the light force from Zelda, but stops him in time. The cap that gave Vati his power is then used by Zelda to restore peace to Hyrule. Now the synopsis of the game is covered, let me tell you what I enjoyed about the game. The game feels closely knitted and the map is way smaller than any other Zelda overworld map. The game feels very nostalgic of my childhood, like I'm exploring the woods or my backyard. It's always fun to also see the vibrant, stunning graphics of the game despite it being more than 15 years old. It's one of the few Zelda games that the graphics have held up for so long. I think the relationship between Zelda and Link is pretty interesting. It starts off with Zelda visiting a blacksmith shop where Link works. We found out that Zelda regularly sneaks out to visit with Link. To me, that shows that Link and Zelda have a close relationship as children. I always enjoy when Link and Zelda are close because it gives the whole Triforce of courage and wisdom a deeper connection. Sadly, Zelda turns into stone because of Vati, and we don't get to see any more of her character till the end. I think Vati is a better villain in this story than some other ones because he constantly makes an appearance throughout Link's quest. In most Zelda games, we don't see a villain reappear often in the game. Normally they appear at the beginning for a little bit and then disappear. I like how Vati had different phases in the final battle. I thought it was difficult yet entertaining at the same time. You use the shrinking ability along with the power of the White Sword to defeat him. I fought him with only having 12 heart containers, but was still able to beat him though without fairies. I think it would have been impossible to do so. I think the shrinking ability in this game to go through dungeons and even fight some bosses being tiny is unique. I also like how it makes the world and some bosses seem bigger and more challenging than they are when you are regular sized. The items you get in the game are also unique and aren't shown much in other Zelda games like the Gust Jar and the Cane of Pachi. I do wish you could have one more slot to have the items in because it is quite annoying to constantly change the items when you have only 2 slots. The dungeons where you get the items are also created vastly different from one another. The music is composed to sound different and each score is unique and special for each dungeon. I thought they were fairly easy, but sometimes challenging, especially latter ones like Temple of Droplets and Palace of Winds. Most dungeons you don't have to shrink, you can't do until you have to shrink to go in, but with Deepwood Shrine and Temple of Droplets you have to do so in order to enter them. Doing this adds an interesting aspect because you can see how a dungeon looks to the Minish. The bosses are fairly easy, and my favorite bosses were Gleerock, Mazel, and the Georg pair. Gleerock shooting fireballs at you and causing the lava to expand on the floor was challenging enough, especially being the second boss battle. Mazel combined the shrinking ability and other fighting methods to defeat him. The Georg pair was hard since you had to use the Bakori sword to form 3 of yourselves to attack the red Georg's eyeballs while also avoiding the attack from another Georg. You also used the rock cape to jump onto the other Georg and attack that one. But with every Zelda game, there come some disappointments and annoyances we all hate. Some of them for me from this game were the collecting bits. It was annoying collecting some of the kinstones and figurines. I feel like there should have been like 50 kinstone fusions. Also, it wasn't necessary for you to do all 130 figurines just to get one heart piece. Maybe doing like 30 or 40 figurines would have been fine because you get mystery shells everywhere, and you're bound to get 30 or 40 figurines in no time. But doing 130 is overkill. The bosses in Deepwood Shrine and Temple of Troubles don't feel challenging or creative enough. It literally is just a big choo-choo and a big Octorok. Maybe a mini-boss but not a final boss of the dungeon. I'm not saying that they were bad, but I don't want to fight another choo-choo or Octorok. If I wanted to do that, I would just go into the overworld to face them. I also thought this game could have added 1 or 2 more dungeons because it felt a little short. I wanted to explore more dungeons, but it didn't have too much, and this game was over and done with before you knew it. Overall, I loved the Minish Cap. It was a new take to the Legend of Zelda franchise we haven't seen before besides the 4 Swords games. I think this is a great beginner game for anyone who wants to get into the Legend of Zelda series. I would recommend this to anyone who has never tried it, and I hope in a few years that Nintendo can remake this for the Switch. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll hopefully be doing another review soon on either Majora's Mask or Ocarina of Time.